Okay, as always, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And today we continue with our session on DevOps. So part 3, DevOps part 3. My screen. So today we're going to concentrate on the DevOps practices that helps us to be successful in that environment. So quick recap, when we started the DevOps session, we talked about how, can we all stay muted so the recording is clean? We talked about how we have walls of confusion. We talked about how Agile fixed the first wall of confusion and then left the second wall of confusion. And that just brings about a bottleneck in terms of more features being released, but being developed, being delivered, but cannot be released into the production environment. Can anybody remember, the conflict going on between development and operations? Development is churning out features, but they can't release it into production. Can anyone clarify that for us? What was going on there?
Well,
anyone?
Development was bringing out work. The reason that Ops was not matching up was because Ops was also trying to protect its own image and didn't want anything broken. And so there was that lack of cooperation, which DevOps was able to correct because they started collaborating and understanding that they were working towards the same goal. So, yeah.
Fantastic, that's it. So the DevOps has come to remove that second wall of confusion and create an environment of collaboration. And that is why we say it was not what do you call it? It was not an infrastructure problem, it was a people problem, okay? Because they were working in silos. And they were, of course, being rewarded for the wrong reasons. So you put a development team together, you are rewarding them in one direction, and then you are rewarding the operations team in the other direction. That is bound to bring about conflict. And these are some of the things, the structural problems that make transformations fail. So you see an organization, they'll pay millions to consulting firms to come and help them transition to the agile way of working. But they have underlying structures that, in fact, your transformation is dead on arrival. Your transformation is dead on arrival because you are telling me to come and do agile, but the structures that you want me to, work with is seriously faulty. It is seriously faulty. So the transformation is dead on arrival. So that is why we talk about agnostic agile. I mean, I'm an agnostic agile. I've signed up for it. It's a mindset, and it's almost like an ethical kind of conduct that you should I say you pledge. And it is when you go into an organization, if things are not right, you really want to point out what is right to the organization. Now, some consulting firms, they'll just take the money and run. Take the money in the sense that they'll say, okay, you want to do agile, but you don't want to fix your faulty structures. No problem, we'll do agile for you, but they already know this agile will not work, okay? So agnostic agile is about going into an organization and letting them know what their reality is and how it doesn't make sense to start doing agile until those problems are fixed. And this kind of problems we're talking about are such problems. Some have, legacy systems that, are going to create serious problems if they don't do certain things. Some have structural problems like this that are going to create a lot of problems if they don't shift or change their structure. So it's so important as a consultant that we look at things like this. So the wall of confusion, working at cross purpose. Thank you very much for that, Grace. Now, it's so important to remember these 3 principles: systems thinking, amplified feedback, and continuous experimentation and learning. These are the 3 principles that guides a DevOps environment. We must always have that systems approach to the entire value stream. Because remember when you did that exercise on the bakery, when we introduced the oven that had the capacity for 600 cakes. Now, by introducing that oven, there's another problem somewhere that needs to be fixed. And if you have not thought of that problem, then you will not optimize that oven you have just brought in, okay? So you have a mixer that can only mix so much, but you have now brought in an oven that can bake, you know, almost 3 times the capacity of the mixer. So if you have not thought about it, if you have not had that systems thinking approach to the improvement of your value stream, you might find that you are not optimizing the new process or equipment or even human being that you have introduced, because you can employ somebody and not optimize the use of that person. And that is a form of waste. And we'll come to see that later. So systems thinking, okay, if I have to introduce this, what else needs to change in the system so that I can optimize the entire system? So by introducing the oven, if we've had a systems approach to the system, to the value stream, then we will also know that by introducing that oven, we need to also upgrade the mixer, something like that. Amplified feedback loop between the parts of the value chain. We must be able to find problems quickly. We must be able to identify problems quickly, find problems quickly. So when the engineers now, because we have DevOps engineer, we are not looking at that, we are not going to that level of granularity. We're just looking at the concept and principles and philosophy of DevOps, which is quite important for you as a Scrum Master, especially if you end up in an environment where they are doing DevOps. Now, when they put this pipeline together, when they configure this pipeline, which will involve different types of tools, which we will come to, we'll talk about the tools, we just won't talk about the engineering part of it. They need to make sure that this configuration is done in such a way that when something goes wrong, we get an alert as soon as possible. Because like I said before, we don't want to go too far down. We don't want any bug. We don't want any bug at all to go too far down into our pipeline before we identify it. Because the further away a bug moves away from a developer into the production environment, the more expensive it becomes, the more expensive. So continuous experimentation and learning, a work culture that encourages failing fast, essentially, and we must avoid analysis paralysis. We are together, we are brainstorming, we think of something we can do. Let's not overthink it. Let us experiment, because remember, it's a quick cycle environment. Let us experiment. If the results are good, we continue. If it is not, we pivot, we try something else. So avoiding analysis paralysis in this environment and failing fast and learning from it. Learning from it. That is what we're looking for here. A learning team, a learning organization. That's what we're looking for. So what are the practices for success? I've got 10 here. Now, chaos monkeys, what the hell is that? Now, organizations like Google, Facebook, Netflix, they really do employ this practice a lot. It's like saying, I mean, I'm sure we have all worked with organizations where there's a fire drill. There's no fire, but there's a fire drill. So that when the real fire comes, God forbid, we already know what to do. We already know we shouldn't be carrying our bags. We already know we shouldn't use the lift. We already know we shouldn't, what's the other thing that we shouldn't do? Yeah, we shouldn't use the lift, and we know where the exits are. That is why we do a fire drill. Chaos monkey is like a fire drill in a digital environment. It's like a fire drill. So what do? They deliberately, they behave like a hacker. That is what this is supposed to do. This programs, it's a program. It's just a program called Chaos Monkeys. They've written a program like a hacker would have done. Okay? They take the position of a hacker and they try to destroy their own system. Okay? So taking the position of a hacker, as a matter of fact, hackers are employed to do this. Hackers, you know, when a lot of hackers, I mean, I don't know if you remember that film, I've forgotten the name of the film now, where this guy was writing fake checks. He was just, you know, doing, I can't remember, it was DiCaprio that did the film. He was the main star of the film. The company had to hire him. You know what, come and show us what you do so that we can begin to plug those holes, okay? So it's something like that. A lot of organizations, they won't publicize it, but they hire hackers. They hire them so that they can pick their brains. So people like that will come in and write programs as they would have done if they were outside the organization to break the system. And the whole idea here is, and of course, there are main developers who are involved in things like that, but some organizations use hackers. They employ them, of course. And the idea is, let us try and, scatter the environment and let us try and recover from it. By doing that, we are getting stronger at maintaining our system. Somebody's writing something. Let's see what that is. Why is it not popping up? Okay. Ethical hackers. Thank you. That's the word. That's the word. Thank you, Franca, for reminding me. Yeah, so they mess up the environment so that they can begin to see where there are loopholes, okay, and improve on the security of their system. That is what chaos monkeys, that's what they do. It's an intentional damage to see how secure we are. So like a fire drill, okay? And there's also the concept of blue-green deployment. I've talked about on this before very briefly, where you have two identical environments. And the idea is to minimize disruption, okay? The idea is to minimize disruption. It's an expensive thing to do. It is an expensive thing to do. It's like saying, imagine you drive a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, okay? And then you are now saying, let me buy 2 Lamborghinis so that when one is faulty, I have the other one. It's an expensive venture, okay? Because, great technology stacks are not cheap. So organizations that can afford this, they do it. So 2 identical environments in every way. When we then release a feature, we release it into one, that is the one without the customers, okay? So let us assume as of today, the customers are within the green environment. We will now release the feature in an identical blue environment. Once we are happy that everything has gone well, we will now push the needle, so to speak. We'll push the needle and point the users to the blue environment. Now our green environment is now the next environment that we will update, because now we are happy with this. We will now bring the green environment to be at par with the blue one, because we are happy with what has gone on with our release in the blue environment. We now bring them in sync again. And then that cycle continues for every feature we want to release. So that is what we mean by blue-green environment. Let me just show you what that looks like. That's it here. So as you can see, the users are pointed to the green one because it has now been updated, and then that cycle continues. And then you update the other one, bring it to the same level. And then when another feature comes in, you always update the feature that is offline. The feature and the system without the environment, without the users, is the ones you always update first. And then when you are happy with that, you now point them back there. That is how that is done. So a blue-green deployment is a technique that reduces downtime and risk by running 2 identical production environments called blue-green. At any time, only one of the environment is live. At any time, only one is live, with the live environment serving all production traffic, okay? So that is what is live. That is where business is going on. We are working with the one offline. The moment we're happy with all the testing, we push the offline one, online, and point all our customers there. And when this is happening, customers don't even know all this is happening. We are using Facebook, we are using Google, updates are going on all the time. That is because they have blue-green environment. So downtime is negligible. In fact, sometimes there's no downtime at all, okay? We don't even see it, we don't feel it, because they've invested a lot in their environment. Then we talk about microservices. Now, loosely coupled, what does this mean? Now, with traditional way of doing things, we have what we call tight coupling, okay? Tight coupling. And when you have tight coupling, it means when you want to make a small change, you have to look at something very big. Let me put it that way. When you want to make a small change, it becomes difficult because everything is tightly coupled. So imagine, for example, where I have a database. Let me use a very good example. Imagine I have a database that serves like 4 different sectors. Imagine that. And I have coupled it in such a tight manner, okay? Payments, address, whatever. It's all tightly coupled. If I need to make a change to that database, I have to bring it down. Let me just assume we're bringing it down. It means I have to take this entire database offline in order to do some kind of upgrade on it. But if we decouple the services, then I only have to take down the part. So let us assume I want to do something with payment, and there's a microservice for payment. Then I only have to worry about changing the microservice for payment because it is decoupled. Does that make sense? The architecture is decoupled. So we go for architecture that makes it easy for us to do updates to our services. If I use the key example, so here's my car key. It is on its own. Here's my house key. It is on its own. They are loosely coupled. So even if my house key is missing, my car key will not be missing. If my car key is missing, my house key will not be missing. But if they are coupled together, then if I ever lose this bundle, I've lost both. Just to explain what we mean by decoupling, okay? And coupling, tight coupling and loose coupling. So here I have what can be considered tight coupling. If I lose one, I lose both. And that is what we're trying to achieve here, to say, let us minimize the aggregation of these services in our architecture so that if I have to deal with a particular database on a particular entity, I'm only dealing with that entity. That's number one. Number two, it now allows for what we call reusability or repurposing. You will hear these words out there, reusability or repurposing, or you will hear modular services or modular architecture, meaning we are trying to compartmentalize services. The good thing about it is, imagine you have a database service that can be used for different types of development. It means it stands alone. So if we are developing a new service, we'll just take that microservice and use it. We will reuse it. So imagine this is a microservice for payment. We already have a payment portal, a microservice for payment, and we are now developing another service. We're just going to, and we need people to pay. We're just going to use our API to call this service or just reuse it whichever way we want to reuse it in that environment. That is the whole point of microservices. I hope that makes sense. Any questions? Any questions? Or is it clear?
For me.
Yeah. Is it clear for everyone?
This is clear for me.
Okay. So that is what decoupling is, and I've used the key to explain it. It's about making sure that our services, our functionalities, you know, that we call to do certain things for us are not integrated, tightly integrated, so that they can be reusable on their own. Okay, loose coupling, that's what that is. Okay, so the whole point of this is, you know, you don't know where you will end up. When you end up in a DevOps environment, all these things will not be news to your ears at all. So it says here, microservices is a software development technique, a variant of this service-oriented architecture. As you can see, service-oriented architecture, you know, not coupling everything together so that when we need this service, we can use it on its own. When we need that service, we can use it on its own. It arranges an application as a collection of loosely coupled services. In a microservices architecture, services are fine-grained and the protocols are lightweight. It's easy to reuse this thing, unlike how we used to do programming before, where everything would just be lumped together. If you now need to make any change, it is a nightmare. So we are moving away from that. Now, undone code. Now, this comes from the Toyota technique. Because Toyota, they were the ones that really started all this Kanban movement and lean technique. An undone code is actually a physical code in a manufacturing environment. That is where this technique comes from. It is actually a physical code. So Toyota, they are fanatical about quality. Toyota is fanatical about quality. So it was no surprise at all that they became #1. I think they are still #1, but I think Tesla is now, you know, dragging that #1 spot with them, or maybe Tesla is #1 now, I don't know. But you and I know that Toyota has been a great company for a very long time. And this is because they were fanatical about quality. And you might want to go and read up on Toyota in terms of their lean practices, because a lot of agile mindset came from that. Lean agile mindset came from that. Now with Toyota, Toyota is a Japanese company. And when they started, they had major competitors like Ford, right? Ford in America. You and I know America, when it comes to land, they have land. They have land in America. It goes for thousands and millions of miles. But Japan, they don't have land. They don't have that luxury. Japan does not have that luxury. So, but they had this good quality, this idea of automobile and all of that. And they had to think in terms of their value stream. They had to really think deep in terms of their value stream to say, okay, we do not have the luxury that the Americans, am I recording? Yes. We do not have the luxury that the Americans have of land space. So how can we revisit our processes to make sure that at any point in time, because we don't have that land space, that means we cannot keep, we just cannot produce cars. There's nowhere to keep them. We don't have land. So they had to revisit their processes, and they came up with all this just-in-time management thinking. You need to read up on it. Those are some of the extra researches you need to do on your own. So they have a kind of just-in-time kind of process where they've had their value stream, optimized with their dealers and the way orders come in and things like that. And there's just enough cars to be sold at any point in time. So as they are manufacturing those cars, it's going to the dealership and it is being sold. There's a cycle there involved. However, going back to the fact that they are fanatical about quality, they have an add-on code. So as the manufacturing process is going from one part to the other on the manufacturing value stream, if anybody sees any defect, remember, and I'm sure you guys have heard this in the news, where millions of cars have been called back. Millions and millions of cars called back. Yeah? Why? Because they now found a problem with the car, having sold millions of cars to people. Maybe something isn't working properly. I think even Toyota, with all their quality, whatever, I think they had something similar. But several organizations, automobile organizations, there has been a few callbacks. So imagine how expensive that is. Imagine how expensive that is. You've sold your car, you've sold millions of cars, only for customers to now start complaining about a particular problem, and you have to call back those cars. That is really, really expensive. Not only will you call back those cars, you will have to give them a car to use while you are fixing that problem. Your reputation as an organization is at risk. So you see why we need to be fanatical about the pipeline, how we need to be fanatical about defects not going into production. That's why I'm giving that example. So once any factory, what do you call it, manufacturing floor, if any of the workers there sees any slight defect, they pull the cord. They pull the cord and nothing moves beyond that point until that problem is fixed. Nothing moves because you don't want to propagate that problem down the line. The same technique has been adopted in a software environment. We need to, put our tooling together and configure it in such a way that if there's any defect, if there's any bug, we get an alert straight away. In this instance, we are not going to be pulling a cord, but what we will get is an alert. That is synonymous to the add-on cord. We get an alert and we fix that problem straight away. Nothing happens until that problem is fixed. That is how this is also supposed to work in a digital environment. And then the cloud. Everybody is using cloud now, and it's API driven. What do we mean by API driven? Take, for example, I'm developing a website and I want to use PayPal. All I have to do is call PayPal. They will give me some API program for me to incorporate. Again, this is where microservices comes in. So PayPal has developed their own thing in a microservice mindset. So all they have to do is give me an API. They give me an API, which is a program. An API is an application program interface. They give me the API and I just run the program on my website, and that way I'm able to connect with PayPal. If I'm selling something on my website, I'm now able to use PayPal for people to pay me on my website. You see how, beautiful this is. So microservices is what is happening here. That is why I can put PayPal on my website. Mr. T2 can put PayPal on his website. Okay. Loosely coupled services, add-on code, cloud services. So today I don't need to buy a server. No matter how big I am as an organization, I don't have to buy a server physically and put on my premises. No more. Let that headache be somebody else's headache. That is now somebody else's headache, because Google, Amazon Web Service, they have some crazy sites in different parts of the world. Iceland, Finland, they have sites there. They have those servers there. It's like a farm. They call it server farm. Endless servers serving you and I. Right now, we are talking, we're doing stuff. I don't have a server in my house, but we are logged onto servers somewhere. It's not our headache. I pay Zoom. I don't care where Zoom server is. I pay them to use the service, okay? So that is cloud services. And like I said, there's now what we call SaaS, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and it goes on and on. So no more headache for actual physical servers or the headache of securing it or whatever. Embedded teams, we've already talked about embedded teams. Bringing development and operations together so that we are no longer working at cross purpose. Blameless postmortem. When something goes wrong, we come together and there's a step to follow. We come together, not to throw anyone under the bus, but to learn from what has happened so that it doesn't happen again. And to also ensure we are creating psychological safety. When you now start pointing fingers and embarrassing people, you are diminishing psychological safety. Next time there's a problem, people will hesitate to report the problem, okay? It's like our children, if they do something wrong and we just beat them and shout, next time they will not come and meet you. But if something goes wrong, you sit them down, you talk to them, you let them know that, you know what, you are the first person they should come to when something goes wrong. They will confide in you and they'll feel comfortable to keep coming to you, okay? So it's exactly the same in our work environment. Nobody wants to show up for work looking incompetent. We all want to show up for work, looking competent and intelligent. But when you start embarrassing me, I'm going to keep mute. I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to be very, very quiet because I'm afraid of being embarrassed. So we don't want to do that. We really need to be mindful of that. And as a Scrum Master, these are some of the coaching you want to give people in this environment. When you see things like that happening, you want to really, really deal with it. It's an anti-pattern in this kind of environment. Status pages. If your server is going to be down for whatever reason, very rarely do we have those kind of things these days because of, advances in technology, but you should have a status page. And I'm sure we've all seen this from way back. If, let's assume I go to a website, I want to buy something, and for whatever reason, their website is down. It's not nice when all I get is an error message. I should get a message telling me, we're sorry that our services are not, up at the moment, but this is because we are going through maintenance because we want to serve our customers better. We hope that this system, will be back up in about 3 hours. Let people have information. I'm sure you may have found yourself at the airport before where your flight is delayed. When your flight is delayed and there is no information, you start to get angry. You start to get anxious. But when there's information, it's more manageable. Okay, I'm sure we've all been there. So when you are at the airport, your flight, you go to the board, you can't see your flight. Meanwhile, your flight is in about 30 minutes or an hour. You start getting agitated. But when you have good information saying the flight has been delayed for so and so reason, whatever, information to just make you relax, then it becomes a different story. The same goes for status pages. That is what they are trying to achieve. And then, of course, developers on call. Operations traditionally were the ones that carried the pagers. They were the ones that were on call when there was anything wrong in the operations environment. So now we are saying, let the developers also go on call. Because when the developers go on call and they know that they can be woken up at 3 a.m. in the morning by the pager to go fix a problem, then they will become much more disciplined at writing clean code. So that if anything goes wrong and the pager goes off and they are woken up, then they can troubleshoot quickly. Anybody can troubleshoot quickly. Now, as an operations person who is now working closely with the developers, right from design thinking, I'm in the loop. I'm in the loop. I know what is going on. So if I get a call as an operations person, I know the context of what is going on. I can better solve that problem because I've been part of the loop. And also as a developer who is also on call, you become more disciplined at writing good code. You know, there's a standard for writing code. We're not going to bother with that, but there's a standard for writing code. So it is about being disciplined in writing your code properly so that when we need to troubleshoot that code, we can see all the comments you have made for different parts of your code. So we know what this code is doing, we know what this code is doing, and when we get an error message, it makes it easier for us to troubleshoot. And of course, incident command system. When there's a problem, when there's a crisis, do we all know what to do? You'll be surprised that a lot of organizations, when there's a crisis, there's total chaos. Total chaos because they haven't taken time to look at their incident command system to say, what do we do? What do we do? What is the channel of communication? What are the roles? So in a crisis, who is doing this? Who is doing that? Who is doing that? And what are the modes of communication? It seems simple and it seems like common sense. It seems obvious, but you'll be surprised it is not happening. So all of these 10 practices here, as a Scrum Master, and you find yourself in a DevOps environment, you want to figure out if these things are happening. You will bring a lot of value to that environment if you sort of ask questions to say, are you doing Chaos Monkey? Is there need for it? Maybe there's no need for it. Maybe there are other ways in which they are doing it. Do we have a blue-green environment? Well, maybe this environment, maybe it's too expensive for them, who knows? But what else are they doing? Because blue-green environment is not cheap. But what else are we doing to minimize bugs in our system? You want to ask these questions, okay? You want to ask these questions. So blue-green environment, I've talked about that. Microservices loosely coupled, I've talked about that. I've used the key as an example. And then let's talk about DevOps toolchain. Now, it says here, with the rise of DevOps, there's been a great explosion in tools to code, build, test, package, release, configure, and monitor our systems and applications. Some of these tools are free, open source tools, while some are commercial. Apply systems thinking when choosing your tools. Remember, you have to learn how to use the new tool, maintain it, and upgrade it. It takes a lot of effort. Now, there are so many. Because of the advent of DevOps, there are so many tools out there now. Just like now that we have COVID, there are so many Zooms out there now, okay? There are so many tools like Zoom out there now. Google these, so many. Google, I can't remember what they call it now. So many. Slack, Zoom, Google.
Connector,
so many that I had never heard before until this COVID time now. And some have just come up. Okay, why? They are trying to cash in. They are trying to cash in. Even a quick Scrum is still fairly new. They are trying to cash in on the status quo now, on our new normal. Everybody's working from home. We need collaborative tools. The same thing with DevOps. With the advent of DevOps, people started developing DevOps tools. They started, so there are so many out there. Some are open source. And what we mean by that is that it is free. It is free, but what they look for, I think they are sometimes funded by donation, and sometimes they are just looking for you as a developer to enhance it. So as a developer, you are using an open source tool. They are looking for you to contribute to the enhancement of that tool, of that open source tool. And there are some that are commercial. You need to pay for it. For example, Slack, for example, Zoom that we're using now. I mean, these are all tools we're paying for, okay? Pay as you go. Software as a service, that is what it is. Software as a service, pay as you go, okay? So yeah, open source tools are out there, but when we are putting our DevOps tool chain together, we need to remember to make sure that there's systems thinking involved. In other words, how well because you can't use just one tool for your DevOps pipeline. You can't use one. There are too many tools that you have to put together to create that pipeline. One tool doing this, another tool doing that, another tool doing that, and you have to find a great way of creating your pipeline. I mean, this is engineering stuff, which I'm not great at. So, but when you are putting your tools together, have that systems thinking approach to it. And remember, you have to maintain them. Remember, you have to learn how to use it. And these things can be problematic in any environment. When you're introducing new tools, it's like, oh, we have to learn how to use this tool again. So all these things needs to be considered, okay, because it has to be maintained. And some of these tools are not free. Some are free, some are not, okay? So all of this thinking has to go into the strategy and, you know, decisions for bringing your, for developing your DevOps pipeline. Now, there's not a single tool that will do everything like I just said. You're going to need different, you know, tools. You will need a series of tools composed into a tool chain to address your needs. Keep it complementary and lean. Keep it complementary and lean. So don't just pick up a tool for the sake of it. Investigate that tool. What are the pros and cons? And how does it fit into what we already have? Okay, how does it fit into what we already have? Remember, automation has its risk too, it says here. Ensure your tools are programmable and verifiable. You want to minimize human intervention. So when you are picking up a tool, you are looking at the potential for automation here properly. Okay, so you want to really make sure your pipeline is lean. Okay, just like we have that bakery, we want to make that pipeline lean. We want to make the value stream lean. Okay. So DevOps as a people problem, we've already talked about that. We were working in silos before. We were sub-optimizing our system. Bear with me. We were sub-optimizing our system. Options, yes, absolutely, Malay. Options analysis, what is out there? What are the pros and cons, like I said? Yeah. So we were working in silos before, us against them, okay? Now we've come to realize, you know what? This is not to our advantage. We really need to think of embedded teams and remove the silos as much as possible. It creates a lot of misalignment, and it's not to anybody's advantage. So because it's a people problem, that is why we want to look at building a new culture, because it is a people problem. So like I said before, you want to look at the team structure. How are the teams currently configured, okay? You want to ask yourself, do we have an effective communication process in place? Are we collaborating properly? Is there trust and respect? Are we having a blameless postmortem? Do we have transparent uptime? Do we have a mindset of theory X or theory Y? And our context, we need to take that into consideration, because one size does not fit all. And even from an agile perspective generally, as a Scrum Master, you work for organization A, their context is different. You come to organization B, their context is different. Now, talking about theory X and Y, it's a mindset. Theory X proposes that people don't like work, and that you have to have a command and control approach and force people to do their work properly. Theory Y, on the other hand, is saying, I believe people will bring their best self to work. They will bring their best self to work, and they will do their job, the job that they have been paid to do. That is the mindset of theory Y. That people will bring their best self to work. I'm going to trust that people will do their work the way they should do it, even beyond what is expected of them. Now, this is the mindset we want to have in this environment. Otherwise, you will find yourself, if you come with theory X, you will be tending towards command and control. If your approach is, or if your mindset is theory X, you will find yourself subconsciously trying to micromanage people. But if you come with theory Y as a mindset, you will find yourself tending more towards creating a conducive environment in order for people to thrive. Okay, in order for people to thrive. So you can read up on theory X and Y if you like. Embedded teams, we talked about that integrated approach to eliminate silos, making sure, we break that wall, and where possible, using the same backlog, okay? So keeping your team small, creating an independent cross-functional team with operations embedded in it, making sure you have your lean process, like we already just said, your pipeline, make sure it is lean, and you are able to, develop your MVP. Use one backlog if possible. Because when you use one backlog, instead of having operations backlog, development backlog, so that when you are talking about things you have to do, you are talking about it from a systems perspective, okay? And as a developer, I can see what the operations is doing, and as operations, I can see what development is doing. So as much as possible, use one backlog. Operation readiness for production becomes obvious, like I just said. You can see what operation is doing, because it's easy to feel, other people's work, job is easy, you know? So as a development person, I can see what you have to do in order for you to accept the features we are developing. I can begin to see all the environments you need to prepare. You need to get ready for our features. But if we're using separate backlog, or if we're working in silos, I'm just developing this feature and I'm just going to throw it over to you, not even caring, you know, what your environment is all about. But when we start working together, then we are thinking as one team. So operation readiness for production becomes obvious to everybody, especially to the developers. And then the top-down stages of team development will also apply here. Okay. Top-down stages of team development, I'm sure you remember: forming, storming, norming, performing. As a Scrum Master, you really want to be sensitive to where your team is at. You really want to be sensitive to that. That is why I said observation is a key skill for a Scrum Master or a coach. Observation is a key skill, because based on your observation, that is what will determine your intervention. What you observe is what will determine your intervention. So if you observe a forming stage, then what you will do will be different from if you observed a storming stage or even a performing stage. And I already shared a PowerPoint slide of ideas of what to do based on what you observe in that team formation stages, okay? So for example, during the forming stage, you're looking at market of skills, you're looking at journey lines, you're looking at games that will help them bond because they're a new team, okay? Activities that will help them bond. Market of skills. What are the skills they bring to the table? Both their main skills and other things that can probably help the team. Journey lines. In order for you to know, to begin to have trust, we must know each other. A little bit. I'm not saying people should come and, you know, share their life history. No, just enough for people to say, okay, I know Franca, she likes us now, you know, something like that. She likes shopping, so we're going to go shopping together one of these days, you know, things like that. Just enough, just enough. Learn each other's language. Not necessarily whether you are speaking Igbo or Yoruba, but the work language. For example, operations, development, you know, let's understand our lingo in terms of our work-related language, and then focus on value creation. And this is where blameless postmortem is so important. It is about the value. It is about the value we create together. It is about the common objective we are working towards. Let's focus on that value, because we are one team. You'll be surprised how organizations have been designed to work at cross purpose. It is still happening today. In Europe, in America, in Canada, it is still happening. Trust me. But slowly, with the agile movement, things are being corrected. Okay? You employ people. You employ intelligent people. And guess what? Recruitment is not cheap. Recruitment is not cheap. You employ intelligent people. You go through this tedious and expensive process to bring intelligent people into your organization. And then you bring them into your organization, you are micromanaging them. You are micromanaging them. You are treating them like robots, instead of creating an environment of telling them what you want. And then just create a conducive environment for them to figure out what they should, how they will do it. That is their job. That's why they are developers. That's why they are strategists, or whatever it is you have employed them for. That's why they are designers. Just tell them, I want A, B, C, and they will not come to you with options. Based on what you said you want, we've done this, we've done this, we've done that. That's how people should be treated in this generation. Especially with millennials, they don't have time for all that rubbish. Once the environment is not conducive, they are gone. Even with conducive environments, millennials are always jumping. Google is supposed to be one of the best employers, but guess what? Their turnover is 2 years. It's hard to believe, but that is the truth. Their turnover is about 2 years at Google, and yet Google is one of the best places you can work. Millennials want to experience different things. Millennials, after about 2-3 years, they are becoming restless. They are thinking, oh, they are getting stale. they want to go to another company and see what else is new in that company. So focus on value creation. Create an environment, that is, that gives people the latitude to be creative. So as a Scrum Master, when you see this command and control approach, you really must get in there. But when you get in there, you then have to come in the right way, so that by the approach with which you come in is already educating that person. Okay, so you find somebody who is doing command and control, what do? You don't correct him in front of people. You don't embarrass him. Let whatever has happened, fine. Now call that person, send him a message, or go and see that person physically. Now that we're working remotely, obviously, it will probably have to be an email and say, you know what, I would like to have a word with you. And then you bring the incidents and let them understand the rationale behind this conversation you're having with them, to say that in this environment, we're encouraging psychological safety, and we're encouraging people to, bring their best selves to work and have the environment in which they can be creative. But that if you're micromanaging, then you prevent them from doing that. Now, you also want to find out why this person is micromanaging. If this person is a manager, this person is used to managing people. So in fact, the team this person is still trying to micromanage, maybe this manager has always been their manager before they started doing Agile. So now that they are doing Agile, this manager is finding it difficult to back off. This manager is finding it difficult to back off because they are not quite clear yet about their role, maybe. So as a Scrum Master, you need to now coach them into their new role, because now they shouldn't be managers anymore. They should be leaders. They should not be managers anymore. They should be leaders. And I like the metaphor gardener. They should step into the role of a gardener that, creates a garden that is conducive for all the plants to grow. So their new role, the new role of a manager, is leadership. It is coaching. It is facilitating. Okay? It is helping with the development of the team. Things like that. So you need to then coach somebody who is micromanaging into these new roles. Okay? So you need to find out where they are coming from, because change is not easy. Change is not easy. It's an emotional journey, because sometimes they are afraid that they are going to lose their jobs, because maybe the transformation hasn't taken time to communicate to them what their new role is. Okay? So if you identify that you really want to have a session with this person to educate them on their new role and make them feel comfortable with the fact that, you are not losing your job, because a lot of them think, I'm not relevant anymore. I had 20 people reporting to me before, but now they are saying they are autonomous. Now they are saying they are self-directing. So where does that leave me as a manager? Where does that leave me? Forgetting that it's not a case of, losing anything, but gaining something new. Gaining something new. So focus on value creation, please. It's so important that you help them do that they are not at loggerheads with each other, that feedback is not personal, but focus on what needs to be done. And of course, this is just a picture showing us about embedded teams. We want good feedback. We will have a shared responsibility. And as much as possible, we want to automate everything that can be automated. You want to minimize human intervention. You want to minimize human error. So anything that can be automated will be automated. And this is why we keep telling people that, and the degree of automation is increasing every day. We have bots, we have artificial intelligence, we have Internet of Things. So people need to keep, improving on their skills. In fact, there's Google Car now. Very soon, those of us in Nigeria, we wouldn't need drivers anymore, maybe, I don't know. So even a driver, imagine that, even a driver now needs to start thinking, how can I update myself? Because one day I will just enter a car and I'll say, take me to Victoria Island, take me to Keja, and the car will take me there with no driver inside. Isn't that amazing? It's being tested seriously. The world has changed. It is being tested seriously. I mean, even in the health sector, now we have keyhole surgery. Unlike before that they want to remove one small thing, they will cut your entire abdomen. No, now just one small incision and you have a robot. Things are changing in all sectors. So this is why organizations must see themselves as not just the business they are in, but as a business in technology. Every business is in technology today. Every business. I don't think there's any business that's not in technology. If you're selling food, you're in technology. Go to Instagram, you will see in Nigeria now, do you want ogbono soup? Do you want egusi soup? They are using Instagram to sell it. That's it. They're using Instagram to sell food. That's a technology business right there. So you need to think. You're a hairdresser. You have just done my hair for me. And then you want to take my picture so that you can go and put it on social media and say, man, look at a satisfied customer, you know? And then somebody sees the picture. Where did you do your hair? The next day you have another customer in that salon. So every business is a software business, a technology business now. So new way of thinking, job change. Like I just said, things are changing all the time. Things are changing. The way we did our work 10 years ago is not how we're doing it now. New way of thinking and working. We can't have that same mindset. You must always think of the best of people. Come to your work environment with mindset of theory Y, not X. Don't think the worst of people. And when things go wrong, find a nice way to correct people. So that you are constantly asking yourself, am I adding to psychological safety or am I compromising psychological safety with my behavior, with my approach? Cloud technology, like we said, servers are now virtual for us. They are physically somewhere, but for us, they are virtual. That's why they call it cloud. Automate everything you can possibly automate. So these are the questions you want to ask. These are the thinking you want to bring to your environment as a Scrum Master. What have we automated? What can we still automate? Self-service approach. So take, for example, this comes from a constraint point of view. So take for example, you have, how do I explain this now? Self-service. Okay, take for example, there's something wrong with my setup, my computer setup. Instead of me going to the Dex, what do you call those people that help you with all this desktop and everything? Support, that's it. Instead of me physically going to support, the support team would have developed a website and a page in our intranet to say, if you have this problem, do this. If you have this problem, do that. You know, a lot of big organizations have that, so that everybody is not going to the support office for every little problem that they have. So what can we do on our own, you know, to set up an environment or to solve a small problem? There's usually a website, a page on the intranet for that. So self-service as much as possible to minimize overworking a constraint, so to speak. Developers on call, we already talked about that. Systems thinking, we talked about that. And help through change. Help through change. Change is not easy for all of us. So don't get irritated when people are lagging behind. Don't get irritated at all. If anything, have a chat with this person, book a one-to-one session with this person, find out where they're coming from, find out how, as a Scrum Master, you can be of help to them. Because remember, as a Scrum Master for the team, you are the coach for the team. And I have sent you powerful questions you can ask people, you know, to help them move 1 or 2 steps closer to the solution that they need, help them find solutions to their problem. So help people through change. Change is difficult. It's an emotional journey. So it is important that you're able to help them do that. Transparency. Agile DevOps environment. It's a transparent environment. A lot of developers have a chat room, like Slack or WhatsApp or Telegram, where they talk about everything that is going on very transparently. And sometimes some of these, I know Slack is integrated into their development environment. So if something goes wrong, or they can even make comments and change a code from Slack. I know some people are organized like that. And then wiki pages. Make sure you have a page where things are documented. Make it easy for new people that join your team. So when new people come into your team, for example, make sure that there's a page where, you know, things are documented. You know, this is the project we are working on. These are the team members. These are the skills they bring to the table. I just kicked off a team in Arizona, like I told you guys. I just kicked off a team in Arizona, and they're using Confluence and Jira. So on their conference page, I created a team space. So they put all their information there, and I told them their market of skills should be there as well. And part of the feedback they gave was that it was so nice to see at a glance the skills people bring to the table. So I told them to do market of skills. So what I have to offer, what I want to learn. So now, based on what I want to offer, based on what I want to learn, they will now talk among themselves who's going to teach who what, because I want them to work towards a T profile. If you remember, we talked about T profile, how in a Scrum team, you don't want somebody to say, I'm just a developer, I'm just a tester. We want people to be able to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, in addition to their main area of work. So yeah, source code, this is all about transparency in our infrastructure, monitoring tools, ticket tracker, making sure everything is transparent. I mean, these are all coding issues, but just working in a very transparent way. So if you write your code, make sure it's clean. Make sure it's clean. And a lot of these things are driven by configuration. So nobody is manually, unlike before, when I worked as a DBA, we used to go through stages and actually configure the server. Now there are programs written, you just hit this program, kick off this program, and it will just set up the environment for you, because somebody has taken time to create different types of setup. That is why if you go to Zoom, for example, there are different packages. You can just pick one package. That's it. You have subscribed. So it's the same. They've set up those environments, different configurations. So if you want a golden package, it is there. If you want silver package, it is there. So everything has been compartmentalized, as you know, in terms of making configuration easy and making installation and services easy. Very, very, compartmentalized in terms of microservices architecture. That's how they're thinking. And it's all about configuration these days. You know, they've made life easy. Somebody else has taken that headache to create those packages. So when we talk about blameless postmortem, how is it supposed to happen? Blameless postmortem is just a meeting. It's a retrospective. It's a retrospective, essentially. Do it within 48 hours of the incidents. Why should we do it within 48 hours of the incidents? What's the importance of that? Anybody? What's the importance of doing a post-mortem within 48 hours?
Well, so that the problem doesn't fester.
That's one.
Yes, and you can remember clearly every part of that incident.
Correct.
Fresh in people's mind is what has gone on, and everything can be documented easily.
Fantastic. That is it. That is it. Otherwise, we forget. Within, in fact, as quickly as possible. Use third party to facilitate. Now, for example, someone like me, one of the services I render is facilitation. So a company can call me to come and facilitate their retrospective, especially if there's conflict. It's always good to bring an outsider that can be objective. You see, I'm not going to take anybody's side. I'm an independent consultant. You call me in to facilitate that kind of meeting, I'm going to be very, very objective. So organizations who really believe they need that, they will call the services of a consultant to come and do that for them. So use third party to facilitate a really, really serious meeting. You know, if it's really, really serious, you want to do that. Participants should come to the meeting with their timeline of events before the incidents. Like Franca just said, and Grace, we want to remember what happened. I did this, I did this, I did that. Come with it to the meeting so that our meeting, remember, this is a high bandwidth meeting. So we don't want you to come to the meeting and then you are trying to think. Already come to the meeting prepared. And then description of the incidents, of course, a description of the root cause. If you remember, I said we're going to do root cause. So at some point, we're going to look at fishbone analysis. We don't want to look at the symptoms. We want to make sure that we do a root cause of this problem, okay, and get to the root of it. Otherwise, the problem will keep coming back if we don't deal with the source of the problem. Document how the incident was fixed and stabilized so that it's true that we're doing all of this so that it doesn't happen again, but something similar might happen, in which case what we have learned from this one will help us a great deal. Admit failure. It's not about throwing anybody under the bus. Oh, I pushed it into this stage instead of that stage. I did it, I'm sorry. Just mention it, and then you will learn from it, and then everybody will rally around you and teach you what you need to know, and we will document it. But then again, admitting failure requires that the environment is safe. So it's a catch-22. Sound like a human. Again, coming back to psychological safety, we all make mistakes. We are in a learning environment, we constantly learn, and we must approach these issues from a human perspective, have a human face, don't embarrass people. It's not, you know, it's not that serious. We can learn and, you know, be better as an organization. Have a communication channel. How customers were affected, all of that needs to be documented. Your communication channel, like I said before, when something happens, it might now throw up the fact that our communication channel is not very clear. You may throw that up, in which case you want to fix that. And then you want to document how customers were affected, because that is so important. Remember, we are here to serve the customers. Above all, be authentic and agree on actions. Any meeting you have at all, you are meeting with intent. You have an agenda. And by the end of that meeting, we must be clear that everybody understands what has happened here, and whatever action needs to be taken, we are clear on that, and we are clear on our next steps. You'll be amazed how many useless meetings still go on in organizations. So as a Scrum Master, as a coach, I'm always looking to minimize meetings because it wears people out. Too many meetings wears people out. That is why even for my interventions, I try to use the retrospective. Except I really, really need to book a new session, I wouldn't do it. Except I really, really need to. So what I tend to do is, I tend to make sure that my interventions are pretty short and brief, and are things I can probably achieve during the retrospective. So maybe I steal 15 minutes of the retrospective time to really avoid creating a new meeting, because already with your agile way of working, you have enough ceremonies already. And you will find as a Scrum Master that people may start complaining that there are too many meetings. So you want to be mindful of that, okay? You really, really want to be mindful of that. And then the last one, incident command system. The incident command system is a standardized approach to the command. Sorry, I can't see what I wrote there. Okay. The incident command system is a standardized approach to the command, control, and coordination of emergency responses. Now, when 9/11 happened, that was serious. That was serious. So when that happened, when the Twin Towers came down, it became clear to the Americans, to the American government, that there were gaps in their incident command system. It became very clear. That incident brought about the fact that, you know, threw up the fact that there was weakness in their incident command system. And as a result, their system is now highly integrated end to end. There's no escape now. Because some things were flagged up, but it wasn't picked up by another system because they were isolated. It was not a continuous pipeline. It was isolated. So things got, you know, out of view. So now because of that issue, it is highly integrated. Providing a common hierarchy within which responders from multiple agencies can be effective. Can be effective. So I'm responsible for this, you're responsible for this, I'm responsible for that. But when there's an incident, what is the new structure? What's the new command? What's the new hierarchy? What is the new hierarchy? And that must be understood and must be in place immediately. Okay? They work collaboratively to plan their responses to potential incidents by identifying weaknesses in the systems. They set up monitoring tools and alert systems. Like we said, we must make sure that we are alerted as quickly as possible. Create run books. Run books are so important. Run books of, you know, who to contact, who can help you and things like that, okay? Who to contact when an incident is detected and what to do next. So a run book, some people call it run book, some people call it playbook. But whatever it is a book that tells you what to do when A, B, C, D happens. So all of these things you want to then ask yourself, do we have this, you know, in place? we have it in place because that is supposed to be part of the best practice for a DevOps environment. And that is where we're going to end it today. Any questions? Let me stop sharing. Any questions at all? As you can see, these are really, they are important practices for this kind of environment, because after all, we're talking about a technology environment that is serving God knows how many people most of the time. So you want to make sure that business continuity is all about business continuity. You want to minimize downtime. And in order for you to be able to achieve that goal, you need a team that can work well together. And that is what Lean, Agile, and DevOps practices are trying to achieve. And that is where you come in as a Scrum Master and a team coach. Any questions?
No, Mary. I want to go take us back to when we talk about embedded teams. And so I know there are some organizations and there are some projects whereby when you start having an embedded teams, it can't get, because due to the nature of what is involved or whatever, because we're trying a project here in my organization, and even though we're trying to make sure that all the teams are embedded, but it's just, it's proving to be more headache than when we could get each one to say, okay, do this, because we have a team in Paris, a team in Sweden, the UK, everybody is guided by their own different regulations. So I find myself in the middle of trying to make sure, okay, we compromise with everyone, and then taking Agile into consideration. I find that this can be an headache sometimes, because you don't want a too massive thing, and then you have operation on the other hand, because we have the operations team in the UK that are very protective because of the UK regulations, especially with Brexit coming. We have the operations teams in Sweden that are also very protective on what goes, and this project touches different, you understand. So, that kind of situations, can you give a tip? Because it's giving me a headache right now. So can you give it? I can't hear you, Mary. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Can anybody hear Mary?
Mary, you're muted.
I can't hear Mary either.
Okay, great. So it's just not me.
She's totally off the screen though. So.
She's there. Something's gone wrong because she's
on screen, but
she's not sharing her screen.
But she's not able to.
She just said a minute, so about she sent a message.
Yeah.
Okay, she's checking something. Right, is this the Grace Shaba that I know?
From where, please?
DBT.
The name sounds familiar. Yeah, you were a BA, weren't you?
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Long time.
You were a BA, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was training on the BA side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Working with you on one project. I've forgotten what that project was. It wasn't. Was it big?
Was it Big Data or Eagle Eye?
Or what?
Eagle Eye, was it? I don't know.
It was big